Hi everybody, it's Friday at 5. Welcome to Cooper-Garrod's virtual tasting series. I am not Doris Cooper, you may have figured out. My name is Corey Bosworth. I'm the tasting room manager here. I also manage the wine club, and when we're open, I manage events as well. And today, I'm tag teaming with Doris, who has been doing our wonderful virtual tastings, to do a little program that I have put together on wine and chocolate pairing, okay? Now, here's the thing about wine and chocolate pairing that I'm just gonna get sort of out of the way right away. A lot of wine experts don't recommend necessarily wine and chocolate, which is really interesting because, of course, culturally, we all love wine and chocolate, particularly around Valentine's Day. So, here's the deal. I absolutely think the two go together, but I do think you've got to think about what kind of wine and what kind of chocolate. And if you put a little thought into that, then I think you can find a really wonderful pairing. So I'm going to start off with what wines we're doing. So here at Cooper-Garrod, we make primarily French varietals and blends, and we make all of our wines dry, which means that we don't allow any residual sugar to remain in the bottle before we bottle it. So all of our wines are dry red wines that we're going to be trying today, which I would say is what most people are thinking about when they think about a wine and chocolate pairing. They're thinking about a cab and some dark chocolate, okay? So right here I have our Pinot Noir, I have our Cabernet Sauvignon, and I have our Saber Jet, okay? And our Saber Jet is our Bordeaux style blend, all right? So this is a combination of Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, and Merlot. So this is a blend of the three grapes that we grow from the Bordeaux region. So we're gonna try to find some things that match these three wines. Now, the aha moment I had with wine and chocolate was when I sort of understood tannins. So I'm going to talk for a second about tannins. Tannins, I'm sure you've heard of this term in description of wine, a tannic wine. Tannins are chemical compounds that are found in plants. They come from the stems and skins and leaves and bark of plants. So red wine, the way that wine becomes red is that you take the juice from the grape that you've just pressed and you put it on that same red grape skin, and that's where it gets its color. While it's doing that, of course, it's also getting a lot of tannin from those grape skins. And then we choose to age our wines in barrels. Barrels are made of French oak, that's bark, and it's going to get a little bit more tannin from the barrel aging process. So red wine does have tannins, more so than white. White can have some, but red wine is oftentimes a pretty tannic substance. And what is that experience for you as a taster? Oftentimes a tannic experience is a drying or astringent experience, frequently sort of felt at the back and sides of the tongue. So that's tannins. And the tannin is part of the trickiness of tannin, of course, is that the other thing that has a lot of good tannins in it is dark chocolate, all right? Dark chocolate, we probably have had that same sort of slightly drying or astringent experience when you're having a really dark, think like 80% or more chocolate bar. It can be that little bit of drying in there. So here's the problem, and this is what wine experts get stuck on. If you have a nice dark red wine and then you have a nice dark chocolate bar, sometimes what can happen when you eat them is it can become chalky. Instead of what we hope with the wine pairing is we hope it can amplify all the flavors. And so the wine tastes better and the food tastes better. And it's sort of this miraculous thing that a lot of people spend a lot of money and a lot of time hunting for these wonderful pairings. And unfortunately, if you have a super dark chocolate and a super rich and heavy red wine, that isn't always the best pairing. So the first thing is you have to understand that red wines have tannins and dark chocolate has tannins. Now, here's one brilliant thing about tannin. Tannin goes really well with fat. It's fantastic, okay? Think about red wine and a nice juicy steak, okay? Or red wine and cheese. These are all things that any expert will tell you are delicious pairings. And part of that is because the fat molecules combine with the tannin, they kind of smooth it out, all right? So now you're not getting that dry, gritty experience. You're getting something that's even better The sum of the parts is great. No, how do you do that? What's that? The whole is greater than the sum of the parts, right? And that's what we're kind of looking for. So when it comes to your chocolate, you've got to choose good chocolate, and you've got to choose chocolate that is perhaps higher in milk fats, all right? So everybody's sort of thinking milk chocolate. Yes, but even with dark chocolate, I want to argue you can look for dark chocolates that are higher in milk fat. There's something called a ganache, and ganache is a term I want you to kind of remember. Ganache is a way of making a chocolate treat in which you chop up a dark chocolate bar and then you melt it with equal parts heavy cream. It's very rich, it's delicious. It's also the basis for any truffle. So if you have a chocolate truffles are made of ganache. So if you add this milk fat in, now you have something that can smooth out the tannins and can make the experience a lot better. Okay, so that's where I want you to start. If you're drinking a dry red wine and you want to pair it with chocolate, I encourage you to consider a higher milk fat ratio in the chocolate, and I think you're going to have a better experience. But there's a couple other things that you can bring to the table. So now we're going to talk about the chocolates, and I just want to first of all call out our friend Emma Martin. Emma's Delights is the name of a local chocolate company, and Emma is the chocolate maker. She makes homemade Belgian chocolates. Again, this is all by hand, and she's wonderful, and she, in times that we are not in pandemic, will come to people's houses and she will give these wonderful demonstrations. She's been here in our tasting room and helped me with some wine and chocolate pairing classes that we've done, which has been so fun. And she makes these beautiful, delightful, and delicate, I don't know if you can see that really close there, but chocolates. So we're going to work with Emma's chocolates. It's emmasdelights.com. If you'd like to support somebody local, I highly recommend it. So let's talk a little bit about the kind of chocolate. So now that we know we're looking for something with a little bit higher milk fat, we want to match intensity of flavors. So milk chocolate versus dark chocolate. I think everybody can understand that dark chocolate is a much more intense flavor than milk chocolate. Okay, so if you have a rich red cab, say, and a milk chocolate, even though you won't necessarily get the chalkiness that I was talking about, but the cab is probably going to overwhelm the milk chocolate. Okay, it maybe can work for you. One thing about pairing is that different things work for different people, but generally speaking, you want to match intensity. So if it's a high intensity wine, you want to have it with a high intensity flavor of chocolate. Now, here we have a Pinot Noir, and you can see, hopefully, this is a much lighter color in the glass than the Cabernet Sauvignon. And a Pinot is known to be an elegant, delicate, smooth, and not quite as heavy and hard-hitting as a Cab when it comes to flavor, okay? So this might be the one that I would think, Pinot Noir, maybe let's try it with a milk chocolate. And lo and behold, I happen to have a milk chocolate right here. This is Eau de Rose. That was my best attempt at a French accent. It's a rose-flavored chocolate ganache, milk chocolate ganache, and we're going to try it with the Pinot Noir. How do you try things together? Now, I have a funny story about this. So, as a wine person, I always think you sip the wine first, then try the food or the chocolate, and then go back to the wine. Of course, when Emma was here and she was teaching her class on chocolates, she felt like you had the chocolate first, and then the wine, and then the chocolate. So either way, I'm sure is perfect. I'm gonna try the wine first. And here's the thing, you really want it to coat the whole of your mouth, all right, when you're sipping it. If you've ever seen people drink wine who are like sommeliers and whatnot, they look a little ridiculous because they make these funny sipping sounds, but it's all about trying to get as much coverage in your mouth as you can. Okay, now I'm gonna have some of the chocolate. Now here's the thing about chocolate, it's best if it's a little melted. So you wanna have some in your mouth, you wanna let it melt a little bit, okay, so you get a real good sense of the flavor of it, and then you're gonna try the wine again. And ideally, we have the flavor of the wine, We're gonna try the flavor of the chocolate, and then we're gonna see how they pair together. Here we go. All right, now while it's still there, I'm gonna try the wine again. It's really good. I wish you could try it. It's really good. What I'm kind of giggling about is that not only is it really good, but all I can think about is every politician everywhere who's like, never eat on camera. And I just did that. So, okay, side note. I won't go into politics anytime soon. The thing about the matching intensity is that the Pinot Noir didn't overwhelm the chocolate, and the chocolate didn't overwhelm the Pinot. And then you get this wonderful joining sort of amplification of all the flavors. Now, this was a rose flavored truffle, like I said, ganache. And what was fascinating to me was that when I tried the Pinot initially, I was getting more fruity notes, a little bit of strawberry, a little bit of maybe cola. After I tried the rose truffle and then tried the chocolate again, all of a sudden I had these floral notes come forward, which makes sense because of course the chocolate had floral notes in it. So that's kind of the fun of this, right? Okay, so matching intensity, we've got the milk chocolate, maybe you think about a Pinot Noir. I also have these wonderful dark chocolate medallions here that Emma has done, and you can't see this, so you'll have to trust me. This is a city, the Paris, the Eiffel Tower is on here. This is New York with the Statue of Liberty. It's just, the attention to detail is just lovely here. So this is a 70% cacao, dark chocolate, square, and this is something I'm gonna try with the cab. And again, we'll do it Emma's way, this way. We'll try the chocolate first, then we'll try the wine, then we'll try the chocolate. We'll see how it goes. Here we go. It's very smooth. Okay. First of all, no chalkiness. This is a real smooth piece of chocolate. What's interesting for me, I think I like sip, eat, sip, first of all, just personally. I like to see how the wine changes, but then again, I am a wine person. What was interesting to me is that the chocolate initially, was, like I said, was very smooth, and then when I came back to it, you know, chocolate can have notes in it, just like coffee or wine or all these other sort of, when you get into the connoisseur phase of these types of things. And this suddenly had a little bit of, I want to say, like, almost a cherry notes. I'm not quite as good at Doris as these tasting things, but that's interesting. It became fruitier, even though there's no fruit in this chocolate. But it does bring me to the next point. So we have matching intensity, all right? The second thing that I think is important with chocolate and wine is the flavor. There are so many wonderful flavors of chocolate out there. You've got chocolate raspberry, chocolate coffee, chocolate caramel, salted caramel coffee, almond. You have all these wonderful flavors of chocolate, mint. And of course, wine has tasting notes too, right? So each wine tastes different from a Pinot Noir, tastes different from a Cabernet Sauvignon, tastes different from a Bordeaux style blend. And so when you really want to like amp it up, you can think about what the tasting notes are of the wine that you're drinking and the tasting notes of the chocolate. So that brings me to the final pairing here. Emma makes a, what do you call it? Red silk truffle chocolate. This is a red raspberry flavored chocolate truffle, dark chocolate truffle. And it's got this beautiful little dried raspberry on the top, just delicate and lovely. So we're gonna try this one with our Bordeaux style blend, which consistently has some essence of raspberry and for me, cocoa, but not like a chocolate, but more like cocoa powder for me. So we're gonna see, these are sort of parallel flavors, and we're gonna see if they can sort of amplify each other. Okay, I'm gonna do it, sip, eat, sip, see how it goes. wish I had smell-o-vision. It's delicious, okay, people? So good. Okay, I should only have one. Okay, back to the wine. Oh, well, that's just lovely. That's lovely. Emma, it's lovely. Yeah, so here's the interesting thing. I told you that I oftentimes do get these notes of raspberry and cocoa in this, but interestingly, the first taste that I had, I was actually getting a little bit more, maybe some leather in there, and then I had this chocolate, and I have to tell you, the raspberry just jumps off the palate. I mean, it's just really right there, this raspberry flavor. And then I went back to the wine, and sure enough, a lot more raspberry in it. And that's the fun of this, right? So it always should be said that everybody will find pairings that work best for you. And there are a lot of different ways to look at things. But I hope this is helpful for you to think about how to make a chocolate and wine pairing. To sum up, I think if you're working with a dark red or a dry red wine, I think you gotta look for milk chocolate or milk fats in the chocolate, whether it's a dark chocolate or milk chocolate. I think that really helps out with balancing out the tannins that are present in the red wine. I think you got to match the intensity of the flavors, and I think you want to match the flavors of the flavors, if that makes sense. If there's a flavor in the wine, if you get cherries coming forward from the cab, strawberries from the pinot, then maybe look for that in the chocolate, because that can be kind of fun. And then, of course, the other thing you can do is do something totally opposite. Salted things can be really interesting to work with. Salt is a tough one because on one hand, it's very dominant, so you've got to have something that can stand up to it. But on the other hand, it can really pull forward sweetness, interestingly. If you have something salty, sometimes you try something and it brings forward the sweetness that you wouldn't have other times seen. My grandfather used to put salt on watermelon, of all things, and but that was to bring forward the sweetness of the watermelon, all right? Okay, I think that's it for today. I do want to say that when we're not in a pandemic, we absolutely have team building opportunities here, and we are starting very hard to think about how to do these virtually. I'm doing a virtual tasting this coming weekend with some Radcliffe rowing alums of mine. I used to coach rowing for the Radcliffe women at Harvard University. So we're going to do a tasting this weekend. I know Doris has been doing tastings. She did one with the Cupertino Chamber of Commerce this past week. So we're working on trying to pivot, as the young people say, to take these kind of experiences to you in your home so that you can try it too. And then otherwise, I want to say keep washing your hands and don't touch your face, and enjoy this time of reflection that we all have thrust upon us to contemplate things like flavors. We are hoping that we can open soon, and we're making our way towards that. We don't have any word on what that looks like yet, but we know it's in the works, and we can't wait to have you guys all back. And until then, cheers.